Hi everyone. Today Salesforce Development Day 21. Let's see what are we going to learn today. So quickly go through the previous session and we'll talk about the object. We'll see how to assign the values and how to retrieve the values. And we'll talk about the use case, quiz assignments, and then we will move on to the object relationship and mapping, and how to create a record inside the object from Apex. We will talk about the use case and the conclusion, quiz, homework. So today's interview questions. Okay, so quickly, what did we learn in yesterday's class?
Object-oriented programming.
Access modifier.
Features of it and
to declare access modifier, private, public, protection.
features of object-oriented encapsulation, abstraction, and polymorphism and inheritance.
Types of polymorphism, access modifiers.
Right. So we have seen all those and
By using development functionality.
yeah. So today our focus is on the object. So yesterday, the last program which I have created is this one. Now, this class is created. Employee details class is created. This is the class name. And inside that, we have a different members. Is nothing but different variables we have declared it. And we have declared the class using the access modifier public, and variable, the members also declared as a public access modifier. Now, this is the class. Now, if I wanted to execute this class, how can we execute it? For example, this class is written here. Now, I wanted to execute this class. That means I need to run this class. And I wanted to assign the values to it. I wanted to assign the values to it. So first of all, I need a key. I need a key to run this particular logic. So right now I have this in Apex, which is a skeleton structure. There is nothing is doing there. So it's just simply sitting there. It doesn't have any values assigned, nothing is there. But in order to execute this logic, I need a key. That means there should be something in the Apex. By using that, I need to execute or run this class. So that key is called as an object. So object is nothing but instance of class. Or a reference of class. That means by using this object, we can reference the class. And we can access all the members and we can assign the values to the class members. So by using this object, I can reference to the class. And also I can access all the variables that I wanted to assign or retrieve the value. Everything we can do it just by using the object. So object is nothing but instance of a class. By using the object, we can reference the class and we can access all the class members. And we can assign the values for the class members. Now, what is the syntax for the object? Now, how can we reference the class? What is the way to execute it? Now, syntax is we need to specify the class name. Now, this class, we will give the class name and there should be a name to object. That means name of the object. You can give any name of the object. The class name should be the class. The class name should be the, whatever the class is there, employee details is the our class. So class name and object name is nothing but a name of the object, which you can give anything here, equal to new class name, equal to new class name. That means whenever I say here new, that means we are dynamically assigning the memory to class. We are dynamically assigning the memory to class. That means we are initializing this. This is called initialization. So I'm using the class name, and after class name, we are going to specify the object name equal to new. That means dynamically assigning the memory, or which is nothing but initializing it. And then I'm specifying the class name. Now in our scenario, yesterday, what are the class that we have created? Yesterday, what are the class that we have created? Here, if I wanted to declare this, then it should be employee details. It should be employee details. This is my class name. And I can specify any object name here. So let's say that e-details equal to, then assigning the memory dynamically here or initializing it equal to new, then I can say that employee details. Now, once this is done, we have to use the open and close brackets. So this is how we are going to reference the object. This is how we are going to reference the object. Now, example, employee details equal to new employee details. Now, as yesterday we have discussed, a class can contain one object or more than one object. A class can contain one object or a more object. That means I can declare a one object, right? This is a object name. I can declare a one object, or else I can declare multiple. Example, employee details, e-details 1 equal to new employee details. This is one object. Here object name is e-details 1. Same thing I can declare it e-details 2, employee details, e-details 2 equal to new employee details. That means a class can contain multiple objects. Now, if I need to use this multiple times, but only the difference what I need to use it, I have to use the different object name each time. A class can contain, this is my class name, and whenever it executes, this is the object. And inside this, we have a multiple objects. Now you can initialize this, or you can initialize this multiple times. Same thing, you can initialize it multiple times. Now let's go back to the ours. So this is the object. Object is nothing but instance of a class. So if I have to initialize a class, or if I have to create a memory dynamically for a class, or if I wanted to execute that class, then we have to first initialize the class name, object name equal to new class name. And you can have a multiple times, you can declare the object. You can declare the object multiple times. So this is create the object. We are creating the object for employee details. Now this is, we are creating the object for employee details. Creating object for the employee details. So employee details is the class. Employee details is the class. Now, once the initialization is done, that means Now the first part is done. The first part is referencing it. So this is the first one, which is referencing that means initializing this class, which is done here. Now, next thing is that we have a certain variables inside this class. We have certain variables inside this class, or we have a members inside this class. Now, how can I assign the values to these variables? I need to assign a value to employee ID. I need to assign a value to employee name. I need to assign a value to address. I need to assign a value to date of birth, right? So we need to assign a value. So far, we are done with creating an object for the employee details. Now let's see how to assign a value to the variable that sits inside the class. So assign the values. So by using the object, we can assign the values for the class members or a class variables. Now syntax is, we have an object name. Where is the object name? Whenever we were declaring this, right? So whenever we were initializing this, here we have an object name. This is my object name. And in this line, eDetails1 is the object name. And in this line, eDetails2 is the object one. Now you have to take the object name dot, then whatever the member name or a variable name. Whatever the member name or a variable name equal to, you need to assign a value. Object name dot, use the variable name equal to value. So in this case, in our scenario, if I wanted to assign a values, if I wanted to assign a values here, right now, eDetails. eDetails is my object name dot. We have a variable called EMP-ID. Variable called EMP-ID. Now, EMP-ID equal to, I can assign some number here, which is an integer. So directly I can assign some number. This is what I'm doing here. I'm assigning the value to the variable that sits inside the class. But I'm not giving here class because we are done with creating an object. Whatever this class is there, everything sits into this object. Everything sits into the object. So right now, once the initialization is done, you can directly refer your object name dot variable. So similarly, if I wanted to mention the employee name, so in that case, eDetails dot EMP name. Now I'm going to assign the value to the employee name. Equal to, let's say that Raj. Right? So what are we doing here? We are assigning the value to the variable that sits inside the class. Now I can define address, joining date, is active, employee salary, everything, but the format is examples or format is, so you have to use the object name dot the member name or a variable name which are present inside the class equal to, you need to assign whatever the string is here. So if it is an integer string, you can directly assign the number. If it is a string, it has to be in quotation. So this was the class that we have written. Example, employee details, eDetails equal to new employee details. Now, eDetails dot employee ID equal to, I have given some ID here. Now, similarly, employee details, which is my object name, employee details dot EMP name equal to David, and employee details, eDetails dot joining date equal to today's date. Joining date equal to today's date. and is the employee is active or not. So I'm assigning these all values to the class variables. That means whatever we have seen here. So this is assigning the values to the class variables. Class variables. Now, once it is assigned, I need to check whether really it is assigned or not. Now, here I say that employee ID equal to 2342342, but is it really assigned or not? I don't know. I have done this execution, but I don't know whether it is really assigned in the memory or not. So in order to check that, what we have to do, we need to retrieve the data. We need to retrieve the data of this particular variable. In order to confirm that, let's retrieve the data. Now, in case if you wanted to retrieve the data, what we have to do? So for retrieving the values, we can access the class members with the help of object as a below. That means the syntax is object name dot member name. Object name dot member name or variable name. So in order to retrieve that, you just need to use the edetails dot emp id. So only this is enough to retrieve it. Only this is enough to retrieve it. Any questions on this? If you understand this class, next 7 classes will be easy. Okay, so let's move on. Example, so system.debug. I'm printing here edetails.employee ID, edetails.employee name. So by printing it, I can get the what are the values that are stored in the employee ID and employee name. Similarly, address. Now let's take a use case and let's implement this. So assume that create an Apex class to manage a project details. To manage a project details and assign the values and retrieve the values from the members by using the object of the class. Create an Apex class to manage the project details. Now we have to assign it and we have to retrieve it. So let's go ahead and create new Apex class. Project details. Hit enter. Now, in order to know the project details, we need a certain information like a project code. And we need team size. We need project title. And it is better to know the client name, who is the client. And when it is starting, when the project is getting started, start date, end date, and is the project is still in progress or not. Right, so this information is enough to move further. So now let's go ahead and declare public. How can we declare the variables?
Public integer project code.
So project code is integer, team size,
Integer.
project title,
String.
client name,
String.
start date,
Date.
end date,
Date.
is in
Boolean.
progress,
Boolean.
Boolean. So let's go ahead and initialize it. Integer project code public integer, team size, public string, project title, public string, client name, public date, start date, public date, end date, public boolean is in progress. Done. Now remember this, whenever you are implementing a Apex class, couple of things you need to write it on top. Now, the first thing is that author, who is the author of it? Author in a sense, who has implemented this code? Who has implemented this code? Who has implemented this code? And the next one is created date. When this class is created. And next one, purpose or a description. Description. Why this class is created. And then we need to have a last modified by. So this is very important in the real time, because whenever you are creating it, we should mention the author name who is creating this class. So let's say that here, CDCA person, and created date, today's date, March 9th. Description, project details to capture product details, project details. Last modified by, that means whoever is modifying the data, they should be entering here. The format is, they should be entering date and the person name, and it should have a comments. So here they will be entering here, for example, 09/03/2023. So the person name will be here. And then what changes they are making it. So it should be in the comments. So this is the format it is followed. This is the format it should follow. So this is starting of the class. That means who is writing this class? This author is going to tell. Author, created date, description, last modified by is very important. Now we have implemented the class. Now let's initialize the object. Now whatever we have discussed so far, right? Creating an object from the class and assigning the values to the class variables, retrieving the class variables. Now everything where we will be doing it, we will be running in the anonymous window. We will be running in the anonymous window. That means you cannot run the Apex class here. Wherever the class is created, you cannot run the Apex class. There is no button or nothing is there to execute this one. If you want to execute this, you need to go to the anonymous window. Now, in the anonymous window, three things which we have to do. One is creating object of the class. Second one, which we have to do, assign the values to variable, to class variable. And next one, retrieve or a print class variable values. Class variable values. So three steps. Step one is creating the object. Step two is you are assigning the values to it. Step three is printing it. Printing the values. Now this first one is creating the object. The object, our class name is this one, class. And let's say P details equal to new, and the class name open close semicolon. So first, creating a dynamic memory or initialization is done. Now the next one is I need to assign the values to the class variables. So we have a class variables, which is a project code. It's an integer. I'm giving some number here. And then P details dot team size equal to, let's assume 12. P details dot client name BMW. P details dot start date equal to, let's assume that today we are starting. In order to give the today's date, you can use the system dot today. This is an inbuilt function for the Salesforce. So whenever you wanted to use the date, or if you wanted to use the today's date, so use the system dot today, so that it will print the today's date. Now the next one is the P details dot end date equal to, let's assume that they are planning to go for 90 days. This project is going to run for 90 days. So what I'll do is I'll say add days. I'm adding the 90 days here. And the last one is P details dot is in progress. Equal to, I'll say true. Perfect. If I execute this, it is going to create a memory here, and in that memory, so in the backend, the memory gets created when I run this logic, and whenever I run this logic, the data gets created in this memory. So project code, team size, client name, start date, end date is active. So like this, it is going to create a data inside the database.com.
Ma'am, so this like anonymous window is used for a testing.
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah.
Swapna, can we change value for the object?
Means
First we assign the value. After that, I want to change the value for this, like team
which
size.
value?
Team size.
You can change it because this is testing purpose. You are not doing anything here.
Okay.
Okay, this is just a testing purpose. You are doing it. But when you execute this, what will happen is first time when you execute, it is going to store the 12. Next time you execute it, it will replace the 12 with 7.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So now
So for test class, we can do it like this, right now.
test classes, that is a different test classes. You can run it directly here. For the testing the Apex class, you need to use the anonymous. Test classes, you can directly do it here. That is altogether different. Test classes is nothing but the code coverage. You are not creating anything for that. Memory or nothing is created for that. So for the Apex classes, whenever you are implementing the Apex classes, in case if you wanted to test your class, you want to assign a value to the variables using the Apex, using this developer console, then you have to use the anonymous window. Now we are done with the assignment. Now the next step is we have to print the values. Now, in order to print the values, I'm going to use the system.debug project code. I'll say that object name dot variable name. So like this, I'm going to print it for each variable. So we have a team size, client name, start date, end date, and is in progress. Perfect. Now, all done. All three steps are done. Step 1 is done. Step 2 is done. Step 3 is done. Now let's go ahead and execute this.
For assigning as date, system is spelling mistake.
Okay. So execute it. Now, if you see here, project code, it is assigned this value. Project code is this, and product. Okay, everything is a project code is coming. Let's
We haven't changed.
So this is a team size. And then client name. Start date. End date. Is in progress. Execute. Okay, so now project code is coming this and team size is 7, client name BMW. Now the start date, which is coming as in the format of year, month, date, and all zeros are coming. But in case if you do not want this format, what you can do is, let's go to the debug. And here we have a something called for start date. In case if you wanted to change the format, we have a format method, which is a inbuilt format method. If we use the format method, and let's go ahead and execute this. See, it is coming in different format. It's coming in month, date, year, and there is no hours, minutes, seconds, milliseconds, nothing is there. If you wanted to make a format, that means I do not want the time. I just want the date. If you use the system.today, it is going to print, system.today is going to print the complete date, month, year, as well as the hours also. But in case, while taking it, in case if you want a different format, you can use the format, which will replace the hyphen to slash, and there is no time will be there. Any questions? Okay,
Swapna,
yeah,
can we print all the value together? Like you are printing one by one system.debug.
yeah,
I want to print this object all value together.
yeah, you can print it in one line.
Like,
So for example, you wanted to print the project code team size in one line.
yeah.
Add a place button and then you can use it. But if you are asking me directly like this, let's suppose instead of this, what will happen if I just keep this? Just I'm printing the object. So let's execute it. Now, the first one is giving me the project code and team size. But in case along with you want everything, then go ahead and print the direct object. When you print the object, it will give all the information.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? See, in database.com, observe this. In database.com, it is going to store this format. But when you are retrieving it, while retrieving, it will convert it. Because we have written the dot format. But when I say dot format, that doesn't mean that my database, while storing the value in the database, is it going to change the format? No, it will not change the format because we have written the dot format while retrieving it. We have written the format while retrieving it. Now let's say, now this format, what I'll do is, I'll change this by use here system.today.format. What will happen? I'll just change this, execute it. Illegal assignment from the string to date. Why it is illegal format? Because whenever I use a format, it will basically, this is a date format. Whatever I'm storing is date format. But if you do not want to store in the date format, if I'm saying here, the start date, what is the data type for the start date is date. But as soon as I take a format, what will happen? It prints the value in the string format. That means the behind logic for the format is it will take the date value, date time, it will take both date time, and then it is going to convert in the format of string. It is going to convert the format of string. Now, if you say here date string, then it is going to work. Now, if I change this string, if I change this to string, and let's save this. Execute it. Right now, you can see that how the data is stored in the string format. Start date is in string format, while retrieving also I can see the same format. So whenever you are using the dot format method, it basically converts the date to the string. It converts the date to the string. Any questions?
Is any other method have that convert date to the integer?
Yes, there are so many methods are in date time. I think we have discussed already.
Okay. Okay.
No, still if you wanted to go through that, there is a documentation which is available. So just search for a date time methods. If you go to the Apex reference guide. In this reference guide, you can see that there are so many available. So this is only print the date. This day is only the day. And the year format, right? Only if you want a year. So there is an option called year method. Or you just want a time, you do not want a date, then you can use the now function. We have seen already this. Okay. Now, any questions on this?
Yes, Swapna, for every class, we need to create an object to assign the values, right?
Every class, if you want to test it, if you want to run, if you want to execute it, only that time it is required declaration. But when you see that, okay, execution is not required. Execution is not required. When the execution is required here, execution is done in multiple ways. In case, if Apex is calling from the Visual Force page, you need not to run the execution because Visual Force page is already doing that. So you can click on a preview button on the Visual Force page. You can see the output. You can see the output here. If Apex is calling from Lightning, if Apex is calling from Lightning, you do not need a separate execution. Whether it is a Aura or LWC, you do not need a separate execution because you can view here by dragging this onto the Lightning page. This is needed only when there is no user interface. You have written the Apex class here and you see that there is some code which is not working, or you wanted to execute just to check what is the value that is coming out. So in that case, you have to go to the anonymous window. You have to go to anonymous window. Then you need to declare you need to create an object. You need to create an object because you wanted to test at least one line of the code or 2 lines of code. So in the real time, what we do is in the real time, we write some 100 lines of code. Out of 100 lines of code, we see that there is a 2 lines or a 3 lines which is not working as expected. When you say it is not working as expected, there is no user interface. Okay, the user interface is not running here. That is an auto execution which is happening by using the Apex class. So in case if you wanted to test only those 2 lines, then the best way is going to the anonymous window, create your object, and then whatever the value that you wanted to check, use this object and then call that particular variable or a method.
You got it, Swapna. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, so let's move on. Questions. What is an object?
Object is
That is an instance of a class. It is an entity.
Object is an instance of a class. We can reference the class
Can assign the
to
values
all
to
the class members.
class members or declare
And we
the
can assign the
values.
class to the class members.
Right. So object is an instance of a class. By using this object, we can reference the class and their variables or members, and we can assign the values as well as we can retrieve the values. How to reference a class
Object.
using the object?
Object name dot class member.
Class name, then object,
Class name, object name.
then new, and then class name.
Right. Class name object equal to new class name.
New class name.
How to assign a values to the class members or a class variables?
Object name
name
dot
dot
variable.
Object name dot
class
Object
member
name dot
equal to value.
member name or
Class
variable
member
name equal
equals
to
to
value.
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 How to retrieve it or how to print the class member values or class variable values?
Object name dot class
then
member.
variable name.
Right. So homework. So create an Apex class to manage the employee details and assign the values and retrieve the values from the members by using the object of the class. So for employee details, like whatever I have created, those variables are needed: employee ID, employee name, employee address, employee joining date, employee date of birth. Is this employee is active or not? Those are the variables. Second one, create an Apex class to manage the customer details and assign the values and print the values by using the object. So customer details is the variables which I have given yesterday. So customer ID, customer name, customer location, and what is the projects that this customer is using.
Is VIP customer.
Yeah, is VIP customer. So those are the variables for the customer details of class. The third one is create a Apex class to manage the product details and assign the values and print the values. Product details like a product name and validity, product validity, when it came into the market, and there is a code for the product, so product code,
Quantity,
quantity, yes,
manufacturing date, expiry date, unit price, is in stock.
right. So is it in stock? So those are the one which are related to product details. So these are the three homework. Now let's move on to the new topic. ORM. ORM is nothing but a object relationship mapping. Object relationship mapping, which is something new. So if you know Java, or if somebody is aware of the Java, or if you know Java also fine. So if you know that right now, everybody is learning the core Java because core Java is very latest, right? Similarly, we have a ORM in Salesforce. ORM is a something which is I cannot say it's the latest, it is the existing one. What it is going to tell us that how the system is designed at the backend, how the system is designed. That means when we are creating an object, for example, I'm creating an object. When I create an object, let's say customer, this is object which I'm creating it. So as soon as I create an object, what will happen? There is a table that gets created inside the database.com, which is nothing but customer__C. This is the table that gets created in database.com. Now, after that, it creates a tab. Tab name is customers, right? And then it also creates a business logic. So these all things are happening at the behind. We are just simply opening the create object and we are entering the details and clicking on the save button. But what is happening at the backend? Backend is table is get created, a tab is getting created, and the business logic is also created for that object. Salesforce is creating a business logic. There is a business logic behind every object, whether it is a standard object or a custom object. So the business logic name will be customer __ C. Customer __ C. So there is a business logic which sits in backside of the Salesforce. So similarly for the standard object, like an account we have, the tab name is, right? This is the object. And for this object, we have a table, same account. And the tab is accounts.
Accounts.
And for this business logic, as soon as the business logic is already implemented by Salesforce, the business logic name is account. Business logic name is account. So whatever the Salesforce is created, the business logic is always, the name of the business logic is always same as the object. Whatever the Salesforce is creating, it's always use the name of the business logic, which is similar to the object. So this concept is called object relationship and mapping. That means, so there are a couple of steps what is happening in this ORM. So ORM transfer each Salesforce object in the form of class. That means as soon as I create an object, what does the ORM do? ORM will convert this or transfer this object, whatever the Salesforce object is there, transfer this Salesforce object into a class. This is done by the ORM, which is written by the Salesforce logic, where the object name and the class name should be the similar. Object name and the class name should be the similar. So for the example, for account object will be transformed as a class called account. That means how this class is going to be, this is converted, but how the logic is going to be stored in the Salesforce, we know that if I am writing a class, how we are writing it, we are mentioning the public, and then we will say class, and then we are giving the class name. Right? Inside this, we have an open and close. For these classes, for this one, whatever the business logic is there, the one Salesforce is creating, the one ORM is creating, here the class name will be the account. Whatever ORM is creating, it will create a business logic starting with public class account. Public class account. So public class account, and then within that, it is having a class members. So whenever you create a variables or whenever you create a field, what will happen? It is go and store into this class. So that means now, what we are doing here, assume that I'm logging into the Salesforce. When I log into the Salesforce, I create object, assume that customer, right? When we create an object, what will happen? We create a fields, like customer name, _C, and customer location __C. Now, the first thing, whenever the object is created, the first thing what it does, it creates the table within the database.com. That we know that. Now, once it creates the table within the database.com, next thing what it is going to do, the Salesforce is going to implement a business logic for this. The next step is Salesforce is going to implement a business logic. So first it will add a business logic here. As soon as we create an object, here the object name is customer__C, and then immediately it creates a business logic public class, and the class name is customer__C. It will just keep it this because there are, assume that right now there are nothing is there. Okay, so maybe there will be a name will be there because that is a standard field that gets created. Only name will be there. Now this, as soon as we click on your object, this will happen at the backend and this will happen. What is this? This is a business logic, which Salesforce is creating it. We are not doing it. Now, after that, what I'll do, I'll click on a fields and relationship. Then I'll create a fields here. I'll create a fields. Let's say that we have another field which is called as project details. Whenever I create this fields, immediately the next thing what is going to happen, it will add another here. That means it will expand the location or the occupation in the database.com. And the second thing what will happen, second thing is that it is going to add here. It is going to add all the whatever the custom fields are there, like customer_location __C, and then project details __C. Now this is going to be added here, but while adding it, what it does, it is going to add a access modifier also. While adding this, it is going to add a access modifier. So that means it will say here public name, and then here public it's a public customer location, and it will going to add here public project details. And the next one, if I add one more field here, is active. Is this customer is active? So immediately another column gets added, and then here it will add public is active. Public is active. So that means at the back end, each one of them is going to be inserted here. Now it will create a class. This is for every object, whether it is a custom object or a standard object, whatever the object you created. Definitely, there will be a backside or object gets created by the ORM. Like let's say that lead object. Lead object will be represented in the form of lead class. So it will create a public class lead. Within that, all the class members or a variables will be there. Similarly, we have a position object, which is a custom object, will be represented in the form of position class. So public class position, and then within that we'll have a class members. So this is how it is going to create at the backend. This is the outer structure of the object and the class. Now, when we see step 2 is whatever we are creating the fields inside the object. Whatever the fields that we are creating inside the object will be represented in the form of variable inside the class. So whenever I click on the field value, whenever I create a field, immediately it will go to the related class and it will save that particular variable into that particular class. So position fields will be represented in the form of variables as below. Like if I have a public class position, now within the position, we have a certain fields like a public string name, public date, open date. So public integer number of vacancies. So whatever we have done in Salesforce, like whatever we have declared it, similarly, Salesforce is also going to store in that format. Now, along with this, while creating this class, while creating this business logic, it also creates a 10 methods. Along with the class, it is going to create a 10 methods for every object. For every object, it is going to create a 10 methods. Now, this method, I can directly use it. Behind there is a logic is written for these methods, but we need not to write that logic again. So Salesforce has written those logic and they are giving us this 10 method. That means whenever it is declaring the business logic for each object, it is also creating the 10 methods for each object. So save method, quick save method, cancel method, delete method, first method, next method, last method, previous method, has previous method, and then has next. So these 10 methods are going to be declared by the Salesforce. So Salesforce is going to define this. So whenever we wanted to go for in Visualforce page for the specific object, if I wanted to get all the records and the records are having more than 10 records and I wanted to use the navigation, then I can simply use a has previous or a has next or a previous, last, first. So these methods I can use it, which is automatically works. I need not to write much coding. And which we have already seen in the Visualforce page. So when we were implementing the Visualforce, we have used these methods for the navigation. When we are implementing the table in the Visualforce page, so first, next, last, previous, has next, which we have already used it. And we also use the save method. Right, so these are the predefined. So when these methods are going to be declared, ORM is going to take care of initializing these methods or declaring these methods along with the object. Now, each Salesforce object will be represented in the form of a class like object name and then the business logic class name. So if my object name is an account, then my business logic name should be account. If my object name is a contact, then my business logic name is contact. That means this is the Apex class. Apex class name is account, Apex class name is contact. If my object name is opportunity, then my business logic class name is opportunity. If my object name is lead, then the business logic name is lead. So like this, we have for every object we have. Similarly, for custom object also, position, if it is my object name is position, then business logic class name is position. If my object name is a game, then the business logic class name is a game __ C. So if my object name is a branch __ C, then my business logic class name is branch __ C. So this is how at the back end, which is designed for the Salesforce. Now, as we know that we have it is already declared, the classes are already declared it. So by using this, what we can do, like they are already declaring the business logic. For account, they are already declaring the business logic. But what is the use for me? Fine, Salesforce is already doing that. But why should I need to learn? Where am I going to use it? So by using these business logic classes, what we can do, we can interact with associated object. We can manage the records inside the object. That means as Salesforce is already taking care of implementing the business logic, and by using this business logic, what I can do, I can create an object. For this business logic, I can create an object and we can perform all the DML operation on that object. Like I can insert a class, I can insert a record, I can delete a record, I can modify a record because the class is already there. I just need to reference that. By using the references of that class, I just need to create an object. I just need to create an object, and using that object, I can assign the values to those fields, and I can do the insert, update, modify, delete, anything, whatever the DML operations are there, everything can be done. Any questions so far? Okay, so who will transform each Salesforce object in the form of class?
ORM.
Object relationship mapping.
And mapping.
Right.
Salesforce.
How many methods are created by ORM?
10 methods.
10 methods.
10 methods.
What are those?
Save,
Save,
next,
quick save,
cancel,
delete.
Save,
Save, quick save, cancel, delete.
cancel, delete, first,
delete,
next,
previous,
last,
has
previous, has previous, has next.
as next.
Right. And what is the ORM here?
Object relationship mapping.
Mapping. Object relationship mapping.
Right. So now,
Object into class.
yeah. So now let's go ahead and create a record inside the object. Now let's see how to create a records. How to create a records. Now, while creating this, okay, upon creating the record inside the object, through the programming, how can we do creating a record through the programming? If we wanted to create a record through the programming, then we have to follow certain steps. Now, so far, whatever we have done, we have declared a class here, and for that class, I have created an object and I have assigned the values to these variables, and then we have printed the values. We have printed the values. Now we are going to talk about is, till now we have created a records by going to the user interface, clicking on the, for example, account, and by clicking on a new record, and we enter the values here, and then we will click on a save button. This is how we used to do creating a record. Now, same thing I wanted to do using the programming. We have to create the same steps using the programming. That means using the Apex class. Now, in order to do that, we have a few steps that we need to follow. Step 1, we have to create the object of the associated class. That means I need to initialize an object. That means I need to initialize a class. That means I'm going to allocate a memory dynamically for that particular object. So step 1 is create the object of the associated class. Now, example, account ACC equal to new account. What I'm doing here, there is a class already defined by the Salesforce. So Salesforce already has this public class account. So in this, we have all the what are the variables are there, or what are the fields we have: public, string, name, right? So whatever we have a fields, every fields are associated here. That means this is already created by Salesforce. Now I wanted to execute this. That means by executing this, by using this, I wanted to create a record. Now, the first step is I need to use that particular object. Then you can give any object name equal to new account. That means I am creating an object here for the class. I'm creating an object for class called account. Or else I'm creating a dynamic memory for the account object. Now this is the first step. Account ACC equal to new account. Step 2. Step 2 is we need to supply the values to the required field inside the object. Now all the fields are converted as the variables here. All the fields are converted as a variable inside the class. Now I need to assign the values to these variables. I need to assign the values to these variables. How can we do that? We have already object here. The object is already there. The object is already there. So by using this object, that means ACC dot name equal to Apex test account. ACC dot rating equal to hot. ACC dot industry equal to finance. ACC dot type equal to prospect. So like this, I can declare, I can supply the values to a particular variable or particular field. I'm supplying the values to the particular field. So where are these going? This is basically, ultimately it is going to the here, the class which is defined, and then these variables are here. What are these variables? Again, these variables will go into the table, and in the table we have an account table here, and each table is having a columns. Now name will be stored here. So whatever we are assigning the value, that value goes and stores into the database here. When we do the insert, right now I'm just assigning the values, that's it. I'm not inserting yet. I'm not inserting yet. So I'm just assigning the values to it. Once we assign the values, step 2 is assigning the values. Now the next step is once the values has been supplied, that means once the values are assigned, then insert the record using the insert statement. Using the insert statement, this is one of the DML key. This is one of the DML key. So this DML is going to create a record inside the Salesforce. When I say insert and the object name, what will happen? It is going to create a record inside the Salesforce. So example, insert, then object name. What are the object name is there? That object name. And step 4, so once we insert, we need to cross verify whether the record is really created or not. We need a confirmation. In order to confirm that whether the record is created or not, we need to use a condition. We need to use a condition, if condition. I need to check acc.id because whenever we insert the record, there is a ID gets created, ID gets generated by the Salesforce. So whenever the ID is generated, that means it is successfully created the record inside the database.com and user can see that record. So if I say if acc.id not equal to null, that means if this is true, then print my account ID. Print my account ID. So this is the step 4. So step 1 is creating an object. Step 2 is assigning the values. Step 3 is inserting the record. Step 4 is confirming. Step 4 is confirming whether it is created or not. Now, so once it is done, so let's go ahead and take that. Save is, that is a save method. It's basically, whenever we are using the DML operations, so save the backside of the logic, the back end of the Salesforce logic does not have a saving the record. That save method can be used by the Visual Force. When you are doing them inside the Visual Force, then you can use the save method. But when you are when you are implementing a logic within the Apex, you cannot use the save method. You have to use the DML operation. So
Like-
what are the methods that we have explained? Those methods can be used inside the Visual Force page. Yes.
Like save inside the save method, we are writing an insert DML operation.
But when you are running the code in the anonymous window, okay, let's see that. Okay, I'll show you that what is happening when we click on save. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a use case. Write an Apex program to insert an account record inside the object. Now, the first step is now we have a 4 steps. Step 1, creating a object of the class. Step 2, supply the values or assign the values. And then insert. Insert the record. And step 4, confirmation. So today class is very important. If you understand today classes, next, whatever the 10 classes are there, which is very easy. So step 1 is I'm going to initialize it, account. I'm going to take an object name ACC equal to new, and then new account. This is creating an object for class called account. Now, how can I assign the values?
Account dot name equal to
ACC dot name.
ACC dot.
ACC dot
ACC
name.
dot name. Let's
Column.
say that Apex record ACC dot rating. We have a rating. Let's take old ACC dot industry. What are the values we have in the industry?
agriculture, finance, banking.
Okay.
Industry.
Let's take the chemicals. Now ACC dot, we also have a phone equal to, let's take some number. Okay. And is there any custom fields here? Let me check the custom fields. Okay, so we have something called active, which is a pick list. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll use ACC dot custom field equal to, and say no. This is what we are done. We are assigning the values to the variable. Now the next step is inserting it. Insert ACC. Now once the insert is done, the 4th step is I need to cross verify whether the record is created or not. In order to cross verify, we have to use the condition if
This is not ID.
not
Not it.
null, then we are going to print system dot debug account record created Either you can print entire account or else you can print a specific ID. Now, again, I'm repeating step 1, we have created the object. Step 2, we have assigned the values. Step 3, we have inserted the record. And step 4, we are confirming it. Now let me execute this. Now, when I execute it, okay. So when I executed this, account record is created. Account record is created. This is the one, 39 line. Right, so let's go ahead and check. Let's refresh. Apex record. Rating code, phone number, industry chemicals. Yes, this is the one which is created. Created date is today, right now time, right? And this ID and whatever we have the ID here, both are matching. Both are same. So that means this is the record that gets created. Now, instead of insert, let me execute this. I have used the save. Execute the highlighted one. Issue on 34. Okay. If you say that we need to use the ACC inside it. Highlight this. Execute the highlighted one. Method does not exist. Incorrect signature. Void save. Account from the type unknown. That means there is a method. It's definitely there inside the Salesforce code. But this is not the right place to use it. Anytime in the Apex, whenever we wanted to do any DML operations, in the Apex, whenever you wanted to do any DML operation, we have to use the keywords called either insert or update or delete or insert, update, delete. So these are the DML commands. These are the DML commands to insert a record. To insert a record, we use insert ACC. In case if you want to update a record, we use a update. So those methods, we cannot use it inside the Apex. Those methods can be used in the user interface logic. Clear? Any questions?
Instead of assigning the values like each ACC dot name equals step expert, something like that, we can give those values inside that when we creation of an object in that, can we do like that?
Yeah.
Like account ACC equals new account there in that as a parameter.
Yeah, you can do that. So basically you are combining the two steps. So if you want to combine these two steps, no, we can do here. I can say, but we should not be using the object there. Directly define here name and rating. And I'll give another value here. Active. And let me give this one. So what we can do is we are combining the two steps. Now you say name equal to Apex, rating equal to cold, active equal to no. So let me execute this. Execute the highlighted one. So the record is created. So this is the record that's get created. Okay, so this is created. So basically, let me go to the developer console. Okay. So debug, open, execute, analyze. Either you can write the logic like this. If you want to be more clear understanding, mostly most of the developers write like this. But if you want like directly instead of initialization, and if you want to go for it, you can combine these two. But when you combine it, do not use here ACC dot. Without using the object name, directly give the field name. Whatever the field name is there, directly mention the field name and equal to whatever the value is there. So this is OR condition. Either you can do on top or either you can do both together.
But it is not best method to practice.
Yes, it's not. So this is ideally the good way to go for, because in the test classes, whoever knows the test classes, so when we do that, so this is what we follow. Okay, any other class, any other questions? Because this is very important. Next time, I'll not go in depth of this because we all know this.
Ma'am, this account field is why, ma'am, it's a custom field, that account.
Sorry.
That field, ma'am, why it is custom field?
Because it's __C.
Not asking. Actually, we didn't create that active field. It's a predefined field, right? Salesforce by default gives that.
Oh, okay. Maybe they are pushing the custom field.
Yeah, ma'am, custom field.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
Ma'am, one question. Is there any chance to create the duplicate records since it is a public object, Salesforce object?
Duplicate records. Whenever you are creating a duplicate records, let's assume that, let me execute this line again. For account, it might not work because account does not have a duplicate thing. But for lead, whenever you are creating the lead, it will prompt you saying that there is a already record is there inside the Salesforce. So basically you will have a configuration. So you will have a configuration which is a duplicate rules. So based on these duplicate rules, whenever you are inserting the record, which the record is already exist. So in that case, whenever you are inserting, it is going to prompt you that this is a duplicate record. The record is already there in the system.
So that works only for lead subject.
Yeah, lead and contact, not for the account.
Okay.
If you want, you can implement on the account also. We have a here. Okay. So yeah, this part we will take it up later. But yeah, definitely account also you can include it if you want to implement it. But in the real time, mostly we'll have a duplicate logic, which is for lead and contact.
Okay.
Swapna, while doing the update, we need to pass account ID also, right?
Update, yes. Update is nothing but the record is already there. So let's go for this. So let's go. Okay. Now you are inserting here. Now immediately you wanted to update some data here. Immediately you wanted to update some data. So can I do like this? ACC.rating. No, instead of rating, ACC.active. So what I'll do is I'll say here ACC.active equal to yes, and then update. I'm using the same object. I'm using the same object. So let me execute this. If I use the same object, printing the account, ACC, right? This is, you are doing the insert and update together. When you do the insert and update together, that time you need to use the same object. But let's suppose you are not creating the record. You are not doing this record. You are not creating this. So when you are not doing this, you need to retrieve the record from the Salesforce database. You need to first retrieve the data from salesforce.com, salesforcedatabase.com. So in order to retrieve that, we have some logic. So once you retrieve it, give a name to it and then do the update. So when you are retrieving it, you should retrieve the ID also. Right, so the retrieving from the data, retrieving the data from database.com is a different concept. But right now, if you wanted to do the update, you need to do the insert as well as the update together.
We can hard coded this IDs, record IDs.
Record ID hard coded means?
Yeah. That means ACC.ID equal to that some already created ID we can put and we can update.
Yeah, you can do that. So basically you need to pass the hard coded value. But that's not the right way if you ask me. So what you can do is ACC.ID. Okay, ACC.ID. Let me write again. Account ACC1 equal to new account. ACC1.ID equal to, this is the ID, and ACC1 dot, let's take the existing one, anything. Industry equal to, instead of that, I'll take the chemical. And then update ACC1. Let's print this. What is the value it is coming? ACC1.ID not equal to null, then print ACC1 dot industry. Invalid ID.
Why, ma'am?
Because you are assigning the value. You are assigning the value here. You need to retrieve this data. You cannot assign the value to ID.
Yeah, ma'am.
You
Got
cannot
it.
assign the value to this. In order to do this, you need to retrieve the data. So
For
while
that SOQL.
yeah, SOQL, by using the SOQL, in the SOQL, what you will do is you will use a where condition where ID equal to, you will say that this particular ID I need it. Right. So you will say this particular ID, you need the record for this particular record ID. So then you will get the information. That information you need to store it into the particular object. So retrieve this and store it into ACC1. Then ACC1.industry and then chemical, execute this, it will work.
Yeah,
But
ma'am.
you
It's for
cannot-
only assigning values.
Yes, but you cannot directly say ACC1.id equal to hard coded.
Yeah.
Ma'am, can you have custom fields for the standard objects?
Yes, we can.
It's already existing or
Now,
Exist-
there is the only one field is there, which is the existing one. So this is, okay, you see here, customer priority. I have created the customer priority this.
okay?
Okay, you can create the custom fields, that's okay.
Yeah. Ma'am, you said that we have when we create an object, the class also created, right?
Back in Salesforce is creates. We cannot see that class.
Okay. If you want to use any class, you need to create another class. You need to create another class in the developer console, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Whatever the Salesforce is creating, we cannot see those classes. Those are hidden from the backside.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Ma'am, as we done for update, like for example, if you want to update, okay, as you update over there, like account.industry is equals to for something you just updated to chemicals, right?
Mhm.
So, for example, ACC.industry is equals to you have like mentioned as chemicals, right, over there. So, for example, what if we have take the another industry, like
Mhm.
if you don't have any pick list for that.
Mhm. In
Like, for
admin class, we have discussed something called restrict the variables, restrict the values. You remember that? So
Yes.
let's create a new field. So pick list. Click on next. Here something is there, restrict the pick list to the values defined in the value set. If this is checked, right? By default for the standard fields, this is checked. So in that case, that means do not allow any other fields, any other values.
Like
No.
that means we cannot add the values to that, right? Pick list.
Mhm.
Is it?
So let me execute this. Comma. Account initialization, insert. I'm commenting this. After insert, check the values. Okay, this is the one. Now let's go ahead and see. The record is 1-1. Yeah. So
Ma'am, but like quick list value is not there, right?
pick list value is not there, but the standard fields, if you see the standard field, that particular option will not be there. That particular option is not there.
So if we want to add a new pick list value, we can do like this.
Mhm.
Like account.industry, like what we have done now. Is it?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
No, ma'am, like as we seen that, like we cannot see that chemical something like we have mentioned, right? We
Mhm.
cannot see by default in this account pick list value. So if we want to create a new pick list value, we can do like that. I mean,
You
we
can
have done.
create it, but this will be added here. But for example, right now this is added here industry. Right now, if you are creating a new account, you will not see that value. You will not see that value. What are the value that we have added, which is out of the chemical JABC something that you cannot see here, because those are added and it made as a inactive. So this is added here, but if you look at the pick list, it is in the inactive values. That means right now it is accepted the record, but you are trying to perform something which is related to industry. There is a logic has been written. Okay, in that logic, if you are checking the industry, your functionality is going to fail.
Yes. Okay.
Ma'am, can we delete and add the pick list values?
Yeah, you the for the standard one,
That's standard.
you have a deactivate option. You can deactivate it and create a new one instead of a delete. Do not delete any standard pick list values. Instead of that, deactivate it. Because you never know that client when they will come back saying that we wanted to use the existing standard value in future. So any pick list value that is there, do not delete in the real time, just deactivate it.
Ma'am, in real time, that agriculture, these all pick list values can be used. In
No,
real
we
time.
don't use all this. We deactivate all of this. In
Okay.
most of the scenario, if you ask me, industry, we do not use it.
In place of that values, we can add new pick list value according to our business.
Yeah, you can add it. Yeah. Because these are the standard pick list values, right? So we never know that something can come up. In case if it is a custom values, custom pick list you have created, and this is a custom pick list values, it's all in your hand. You can delete it and you can add it.
Yeah. Because of it's all different banking, it's a different, and agriculture is different chemicals.
Yeah, that's true.
Some.
So what we do is, if we are 100% sure that this is never we are going to use it. So this application is only related to banking. We are not going to use this application for anybody. Then in that case, I have 100% confident that these values are not needed. So you can go ahead and delete it. So if I say that missionary, are you sure you wanted to delete? Then when you delete it, it is going to ask you to replace. Which one you wanted to replace? Do you wanted to replace with the blank value, or do you want to replace with the existing pick list value? Because there are some records which are exist for this particular missionary. So we do not want to impact the existing records when we delete the pick list value. So we
Yeah.
need to replace that and then we have to use that.
Mostly we prefer delete instead of like deactivate.
Yeah, it's
Instead of
client
delete.
agrees that, go ahead and delete it. If client is having some confirmation, it's not clear, then better is to deactivate it. Okay, so homework, write an Apex program to insert and lead record inside the object. Try to insert the lead record more than one with the same data. Write an Apex program to insert the case record inside the object. Write an Apex program to insert and contact record inside the object. Write an Apex program to insert a position record inside the object with Bangalore location. So while inserting, you need to specify the location Bangalore. Write an Apex program to insert a Bangalore city lead with manufacturing industry. So city is Bangalore. We are creating the lead and industry is manufacturing with some 56 lakhs as the revenue. So that's all. What did we learn so far?
Object.
Object.
Assigning values to objects.
Mhm.
Assigning the
Retrieve.
values, retrieving the values. Object relationship and mapping.
Right. Then creating the record inside the object. So that's all for today's session.